Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are, whenever you're watching this, this is Floating in Dreams. Today we're doing a tea time chat about why I think PR is actually quite problematic. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me and my cup of puka, peppermint, and licorice tea for a new tea time chat. And in today's tea time chat, we are going to be chatting about why I think PR is a bit of a double-edged sword. So there are benefits to PR for sure, but there are also some things I think that are a bit negative about it, and that's what this video is about. And since I have 4 pages of notes, this is going to be a long one, so strap in, get yourself a cup of tea as well, and then we'll get started. And in case you're new here, hi, my name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I like to come on here to chat about eyeshadow palettes, Essence and Catrice reviews, and getting the use out of my makeup. And because I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, I do myself a snow angel. And if you would like to join the Snow Angel Club, then definitely click subscribe down below. So yeah, I wanted to come on here to chat to you about why I think PR is a double-edged sword. There are good things about it, but there's also some things that are a bit negative about it, I feel. So I've got some different topics here today, so I'll make sure to break the video into chapters so that you can bounce around and watch whatever part you're most interested in. And the main topics are going to be a little bit about why I want to do this video and my standpoint regarding PR, and then I want to explain that standpoint by explaining to you why I think PR is problematic, and that's going to be cut into different sections as well. And then towards the end of the video, we're going to round it up with a conclusion, sort of trying to like guide you a little bit what it means as a creator or as a viewer, and then also again to sort of, you know, round it up nicely and really show you why it's a double-edged sword. And by the time we get to that point in the video, I hope I've managed to do it. As I said, I've got 4 pages of notes, which is a lot, so I hope it's not going to be too long. But let's just get started with the first part of the video, which is sort of like my perspective on the whole thing and sort of like my personal standpoint. So in terms of this channel, I do receive some PR, but not that much. And I'm not someone who will ever request PR from a brand myself, and I actually also turn down most offers. PR to me is just a little bit finicky, so to speak, and that's why I wanted to sort of come on here to explain my standpoint and sort of let you know why it is the way it is that I don't focus that much on PR. So one of the reasons, the thing that I feel the first initial reaction of people is when I tell them that I do this for, you know, fun, is, oh, you must be getting so much free stuff. Like, aren't you getting PR the entire time? So there seems to be this assumption of people who aren't doing this, and just like assuming that everybody who does this just gets free stuff all the time. That's not true. And creating content isn't about getting free stuff, and I feel it shouldn't be actually. But I do think that PR is sort of like a necessary evil. It kind of comes with the territory if you do this sort of thing, that getting PR can be really helpful. It means you might get products earlier before they officially release. And if you then create a video with that, that video usually does quite well, because then people start searching for the new makeup and your video is already up. So it really helps you to create traction, do very well in algorithms, and just get your content out there. Truth be told, in terms of like growth on a social media platform, new is better than old for algorithms. So the best way to grow as quickly as possible is if you have new stuff, and the easiest way to get new stuff is if you're receiving PR. So that's definitely there, but I don't think that people realize that there's actually a lot of people who are either still buying the majority of their products even though they do receive PR, or people who just buy everything themselves. In any case, what you should know as a viewer is that as content creators, we are required to list, doesn't matter what the platform is, because it has nothing to do with the platform you're on, that it should be listed whether something was sent in PR or whether something is a sponsorship. It should be either mentioned in the video or it should be in a description box. And also, especially if it's like sponsored, there are very many legal requirements as well. PR and sponsorships are very much part of like legal measures that are taken in terms of like advertisements that are of course different from country to country, but most countries have rules for also, you know, how to deal with advertisements on social media by now. So it really also depends on the country you're in, what you're supposed to do. But I personally, if I see a creator who doesn't disclose PR or, you know, a sponsorship, then that's usually a reason for me to like stop trusting them, and I usually stop following them as well. So you need to list it, and the way I go about it in my disclaimer, it says that if something was sent to me in PR, I put an asterisk behind it in the description box, and I will always list it in the video as well, so that you know what was gifted for free and what wasn't. So, but most of the stuff I show in my videos was bought by me, so I don't want to have to go about it all the time like that. So why do I not focus on getting PR from brands? Why is it not something I'm chasing? It has nothing to do with the fact that brands aren't open to send me PR, and it also has nothing to do that I'm like trying to be like, oh, look at me being like a better person over here. That has nothing to do with it. For me, it really has to do with staying in control of my content. So if you receive PR, brands sometimes, and that's something we'll go into in a minute, they do try to sort of sometimes tell you what to do with it. And it can be a bit of it can be a little bit difficult to navigate those waters. So I was like, if I want to talk about the things I want to talk about in the way I want to talk about them, then it's better to not receive PR. And I know there's other creators who have stopped receiving PR, who have taken themselves off of PR lists for that reason as well. Another reason why I need to stay in control of my content is because I have an actual job. Well, this can be an actual job for people, of course, but I have a job outside of YouTube that makes up my main income, and that takes priority over this. But in order to be able to do this and create the content next to my job and my social life, I have to have a content schedule, which means I plan videos 2 to 3 months in advance. Will I have recorded them yet? No, not necessarily. But with PR, there is usually like a certain time frame in which you are supposed to post about it in order for it to do anything for either the brand or for your channel. And that just means that I would have to cut out other ideas I have. So it will also limit my creativity in terms of what I can post on this channel. And that's something that I would miss if I wouldn't be able to do that. Also, I only say yes to PR if it's a brand I'm already interested in. Very often brands that will say like, hey, we can send you this stuff. It's something that I feel doesn't really go with my channel or doesn't go with my aesthetic. I mean, the amount of times I've been approached to talk about fake lashes or contact lenses or like detox teas, I'm like, no. So that's just not something I'm gonna do. And I actually also want to pay for most of the things I show on my channel just to stay in touch with the value of makeup and products, because some things can be really expensive. And then it's very easy to say like, oh, this is a great product if you've got it for free, but would you still feel the same way if you actually put down the money for it? So that's another thing there as well. And then there's a couple of other points that I want to raise here that I'm going to explain a bit further on. But PR is a lot of packaging. It's not very sustainable, and also it creates a lot of overflow because PR is very often just send out to everyone at the same time the same products. So there's not much tailoring to what you might need as a person. And to be quite fair, for me, just the amount of brain space it would take up to stay on top of all these new things that will come my way, I would not be able to use it all, review it all, get the use of it out of it that I would like to get out of it. So for me, it's just like too much, and that is like one of the reasons why I don't request it. So I'm just trying to protect myself and my mental health to not be part of the rat race, pretty much. I'm here for a marathon. I'm not here for a sprint. I'm not here to grow the fastest, the quickest. I'm here to just have fun. And if I can get a freebie along the way, great. But I want to make sure that it stays fun for me, and PR and everything that comes with it as a creator it's just something I frankly just don't have the time to deal with. So that's why I wanted to also make this video and to sort of tell you more from like the back end of things and what I've experienced, but also what I've heard other creators talk about, why PR isn't as like exciting as a lot of people think it is. So now we get to the meat of the video. Why do I think PR is problematic? So first of all, I want to discuss why PR and sponsorships aren't necessarily the same thing, and that you need to be very careful also as a viewer to know the difference between these things. So PR should be unconditional, as in, we are a brand, here are some products that we would like you to try. We hope you love it and you talk about it, but no strings attached. It's up to you to decide how you want to talk about it, what you talk about, when you talk about it. But very often with brands, as we'll see in a minute, that's not the case. Another thing you should know about PR is that very often it's frowned upon if you do sell it onwards, because you got those things for free and then you would be making money off of it. So that's not very ethical. And this is also another reason why bigger creators will not sell their used PR makeup to viewers, in case you were wondering, because I know there's a lot of discussion like, oh, they have so many things, why not share it with me? Whenever you do any color, you get these questions, especially if it's something that was gifted to people in PR. They're not even allowed to give it to anybody else unless it's someone they know. And then sponsorships, what is the difference between PR and sponsorship? When you get a sponsorship, you're actually paid for by the brand to feature the product in a video. And very often that means that you will receive talking points that the brand would like you to include in the video. Either it's certain tags or buzzwords or like things they just want you to say. And they'll just have demands of how long the content should be, where it should be in the video, etc., etc. So very often a sponsorship is a true contractual obligation between two parties. And that also means that brands very often want to approve the content before it goes up. So that's sort of like the main difference between sponsorship and PR. But some of the points I'm about to make go for both. So I do rope them in a little bit together in the video. So the first main point here is that I just said PR should be unconditional, no strings attached. And very often it's not. And that's, I think, the reason why I, again, am very sort of reluctant to receive a ton of PR. First of all, I've experienced this as well, but talking negatively about products you receive in PR can actually lead to you getting kicked off of the PR list, and then sort of you being blacklisted as being too negative, and that you never work with that brand ever again. So PR and the way it's gifted to creators is very much aimed, like based on the establishment of relationships. And as long as you're nice to the brand, they're gonna send you things. And there are definitely brands who will just get people, will no longer send things to people if they talk about it in a bad way. So, and also setting up the relationship with a brand can take a lot of time. It's a lot of emailing back and forth with representatives, possibly even, you know, having to go to certain events so you can meet certain people. So you have to be not only liked by the brand, but you also need to fit their demographic. And to be quite fair, with actually having a job that I do outside of YouTube, I don't have the time to like show up on a Thursday afternoon when they want me to show up. You know, I just don't have time for it. Like physically, I just don't. So that's why setting up the relationships with brands is something that, you know, for me, all of the time I have goes into creating the content and not anything that goes on around it. Very often when brands ask you to send PR, they will suddenly then say, but hey, can you do like a dedicated video, or can you show it in a video then and then, or can you like do a video in exchange for receiving the product? And this is actually a video I saw Tina from the Fancy Face do. So I'll make sure, if I can find it again, I'll link it in the description box down below. And she said, like, creators, watch out that you don't work for free, because it's, if you agree to receive PR in exchange for a full video, you're essentially doing the work for the brand and you're not being paid to do it. Yeah, you're paid in product, but product isn't going to pay your bills. So especially if you start doing YouTube more professionally and you really want to do it as a job, you have to be very careful in what sort of relationships you set up with brands from the get-go, because once you start doing things for free, it's very difficult to then get paid for it. I did this once where I agreed to do a dedicated video for a brand, but that's because it was a brand I was already interested in, and I was like, okay, I was still able to use other products in that video as well, so it just felt like a regular video. There were just products by this other brand in that video, so it didn't really feel like that should have been a sponsorship to me personally. But yeah, when brands are very adamant, like you need to just talk about our products and nothing else, you need to ask for money. Then you're gonna have to pay me if that's what you want me to do. And another thing that brands will often do is that they have these stipulations that you need to post it within a certain time frame. And for me, that's almost impossible to stick to, not only because I already have my content schedule, but very often what's happened to me a few times is that brands will say, okay, then we need you to post the video before this date, and then the package hasn't even arrived. Or in order for me to get the video up by that date, I need to get the package before a certain date, and then the package hasn't arrived before I need to film the video. And then the brands start emailing you like, hey, where's the video? And you're like, yeah, if I don't have the products, I can't talk about them either. So I think that especially when it comes to receiving PR, that's all fun and games, but especially if you want to transfer into doing YouTube as a job or any form of content creation, then you need to almost include sponsorships to have a reliable enough income, because AdSense is just very wishy-washy and it differs every month how much you're going to get. So I do think that accepting free product can be problematic in the long run if, you know, you've done that for such a long time. They're like, yeah, but you used to do it like that all the time, and now you're asking to be paid. And so in terms of the way it all works out, I think that PR in that sense can actually be quite negative for a creator for sure. The second point I want to raise here is that you should know that PR is never, ever free. Yes, you get free product, but there's a lot of things, apart from strings attached and demands that brands then suddenly have that they want you to do with it. I've only had it like once or twice that a brand was like, no, we just want to send you something. Talk about it if you want to. You don't have to. Okay. But what I have also found is that a brand asked me to send me PR, and they did, but they were from outside of the EU, and then the package is still going to be subjected to the customs and handling fees that you need to pay. So especially, I was on a PR list for some time, and I would get an unsolicited package that I didn't ask for, and it was a product I just couldn't see myself use at all. And yet, in order to receive the package, I still had to pay for the shipping and handling fees. So yeah, it was a cost I wouldn't have made myself anyway, and yet I had to pay for it. So even PR isn't always free, because there could be costs there as well. Also, very often if PR is sent out, it's not always like a complete line. I know, for instance, as some people have said in the past, you do so much content with S's and Catrice stuff, why not ask if you can be put on their PR list? And I did send them an email at some point like, hey, I'm doing this thing over here. They've never responded to me. I'm pretty much too small a fish in the sea again, and they seem to work mainly with German influencers. And I'm not, so they're not going to ever work with me, I'm sure. But S's and Catrice PR is something I don't necessarily want to receive, because they only give out little pouches of products, and it is a selection of what they have coming. And for instance, they will send the same foundation shade to everyone and one lipstick to everyone, which, I mean, it makes sense, but if you want me to try out the product and the foundation shade is like 5 shades too dark for me, then I'm never going to be able to give it an honest review. So this is why I actually prefer to buy those products myself, because then I can just buy the entire lipstick range and swatch them all out for you. So if I'm still going to be buying the majority of a range anyway myself, because the brand is only sending me a select part of the range, then I'd rather just spend the money myself. to be quite fair. I've already mentioned it as a reason why I don't want to receive PR, but it creates a lot of waste, especially if it comes in like special packaging. The carbon footprint of PR, I think it's almost irresponsible. The elaborate boxes, just the sheer amount of packaging that you need to recycle from PR boxes is amazing. It has to travel miles because very often these brands are located somewhere, I don't know, in China or the US, or they're never in the Netherlands for sure. And of course, someone has to create that product too. So even though the PR is free for you, as in you don't have the cost of making the purchase, everything else still needs to happen. So in terms of impact, sustainability, I think there's a lot to be said for not doing PR at all, because there's going to be a cost somewhere in the chain, like somewhere. So essentially, you know, PR is just extra product that the brand makes to give out for free to people. So yeah, is this a very sustainable business model in the long run? I think it's something that's left over from like traditional media days. So magazines, television, newspapers, and the way that ran. I know that for decades, brands have sent product to beauty editors at, you know, magazines like Vogue or whatever, just like they are being sent clothes. So yeah, it's sort of like something that's there, but do we really need it? I'm not entirely sure from that perspective. Like, if we want to do a better job for the planet, then maybe don't do PR. And lastly, PR not being free also has to do with, I feel, is overflow of product. So even if brands do send out an entire range to you, if you were only interested in 1 or 2 products from that range, then you're stuck with a lot of extra product that, you know, are you going to talk about it? And here again, it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, I feel, because bigger channels, like the bigger you grow, the bigger your audience, the more brands will be interested in working with you. So the bigger the chances are that you're going to be receiving PR. But the bigger the creator, the more PR you receive, the harder it's going to be to talk about it all. So I think that for a lot of people, they're just receiving packages and it's sitting on a shelf and it's never being used. So I do think that in terms of that, you know, bigger creators receive everything, but they can't talk about it because they receive too much. But yet smaller creators could actually be helped if they were sent PR, but they're not going to get it because these bigger creators already get it. And as I already mentioned, not all brands always send out everything, but if they do, for instance, send out a full foundation range, like there's only 1 shade of foundation I can possibly use for myself. So then you're stuck, especially nowadays, with brands releasing 50 shades. I mean, then you're stuck with 50 foundations that you really didn't need. So this is why you also see, if you've ever seen declutters of bigger creators, that they have like a winter shade and a summer shade. Yeah, if I were sent 15 shades of foundation, I would have that too, but is that something that a normal person would do? I would just buy a different foundation for the summertime because I tend to like different textures then too. So I don't know. It's easier to do when you receive those things for free, I think. And then the third main point I want to make is something I see that people find annoying sometimes, but have you noticed that sometimes creators will all have the same sort of palette or makeup product up at the same time? And that's because of the stipulations that brands sometimes have for sponsorship and PR, is that they say, okay, you need to talk about it before this and that date. So PR is very often given out when a product is launched, and then you need to create the content within a certain time frame. This is great for brands because it creates market saturation. If all of a sudden across like 10 different channels, all people see is your palette, you just create more of that nugget in people's minds, like, oh, this brand has a new product out. But for a creator, it actually isn't that prolific, because if you're smaller than someone who also talks about this product, then your video is going to get snowed under, because algorithms tend to favor the bigger creators anyway. And that means that your video is not going to get as much traction. And very often the traction your videos receive are also, again, a condition for you to keep receiving certain PR. So if a brand would approach me, like, would you like to talk about this product along with 10 other creators? My answer probably would be no. I'm not sure how I would respond in that situation, but yeah, I think that it could actually hurt your view counts and your engagement in the end, because the bigger creator is going to be recommended by YouTube over you. And I think one of the reasons why brands may be doing this is because they're like, well, then, you know, the customer will get different perspectives from, you know, about the same product from different channels. So that will be helpful to select if you'd like to buy it. But if, you know, one of the conditions of receiving PR and staying on PR lists is often that you at least talk positively about products, are we then going to get all of those different perspectives on the same product? I don't think so, because this is something I really see, is that the people who receive PR the first are usually the ones who are overly positive about products. And I feel if it greatly skews the way we talk about makeup, and like it's hyped up and all that. So I feel that people who receive the PR, they talk less about like the limitations of a product and what it may not do, or who it is or isn't right for. And yeah, and that just has to do with the fact that if you also want to receive the next release, you're at least gonna have to be fairly positive in your review about the product. And because everybody needs to get their content up at the same time, of course, it also means that if you are in a location that the package takes longer to get to, some creators may have had more time with the products than others, but we don't know that in advance as viewers. So maybe someone has only had a day to play around with it, whereas someone else has had a week. So how valuable are those those reviews if, you know, someone has only had a little bit of time before their video goes up? And that's another thing that I feel is so problematic about PR, because even if all creators had the same amount of time to review the product, the reviews you see with PR products aren't true reviews. They are first impressions. And a first impression, maybe something you try for the first time, you swatch it, you go like, ooh, no, or ooh, yes. But if you start using it for a longer period of time, you could actually change your mind about things. So that's why I don't like doing my reviews that quickly, because I do want to make sure I try like every shade in the palette before I make up my mind. And very often what you see is that creators have only had a day, maybe 2 days to play with something, and then their video is there. So it's very much based off of initial impressions. Sometimes there are definitely channels that I suspect base their opinions just on swatches. Like maybe they do one look and that's it, and then they tell you how they feel. But if nobody has the time to really try it out, to see whether something wears for an entire day or whether they will still love it after some time, I don't know. No matter what the creator calls it, to me, that's just not a review. It's a first impression, and in order to properly review it, you need to come back to it at a later point in time. You just have to. And then to factor in that, you know, the bigger you are, the more PR you get. If you just look at what some people receive, they can never even go back to the product to give it a proper review. So all we're getting is this chain of first impressions, because by the time they've done a first impression on this product, the next product has already been released that they need to talk about. So I don't know whether, yeah, that's not the content that I like to watch. And I feel that very often when this happens, when I see this happening on channels, that's when I start to disengage with it, I feel. So for me, what then happens is that you just see first impression after first impression, and then at the end of the year, the product pops up in a declutter and you've never heard anybody talking about it ever again. And I do feel there are people who try to go back to things, like they try to do like a ranking of some products, or, you know, use it in another Get Ready With Me. You do see that in an attempt to, but very often you'll see people talk about products for like 2 weeks and then everything just drops off of the radar. And then I'm like, ooh, unless it's like their own product that suddenly pops up like 6 months after it was discontinued, that they do go back to, but then other products not. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. I'm like, if you truly love something, you want to go back to it all the time and you just want to keep using it. And maybe I just don't, like, I know that some people watch my content and know exactly what I love. They sometimes even know it better than I do. But I've never engaged with any sort of content creator in that way. I could not tell you the favorite products of any of the people I watch, really. And then last but not least, and this is, I think, the main point I want to make, brands use PR to pit content creators against each other. And so PR is, it's not a neutral thing, people. It's just like, oh yeah, you can just like do this. No. I've received emails where people will say like, you will only receive PR if we can be guaranteed that we shift so many units. I'm like, but that's not the point of PR. You like me and you would like me to talk about your products, and then it's going to maybe happen. Or maybe if they offer you a commission, they give you like some sort of affiliate link, and everything will depend on how much you push the product. So if you've ever felt like products were being pushed down your throat, it's probably because a creator has signed up for something like this, where a brand has said that, you know, in order to remain on the PR list, you need to like make sure you talk about our brand as much as possible. And here's a link, and we can then track how many people, like how many conversions you create. And we're going to send out PR based on that. I mean, I was on one of those lists before where a brand had sent me PR consistently for some time. And then in order to stay on it, I would have to start pushing product. And I was like, no can do. That's not what we're gonna do. And I think that that's the most problematic side of PR, actually, because the premise there then is, for me, the more you push the product, the more product you will receive to push, which I'm not here for that. So that's why I definitely don't like that. And another thing, this was talked about in a video by James Welsh. He's a pretty big skinfluencer here on the platform, in case you're unfamiliar. And he gave an example of how him and his team had said to a brand who had said, we're a small brand, we don't have that much budget to, you know, pay for a sponsorship. Can we do it for this amount? And they had agreed to, because it was a brand he liked, and, you know, they were small indeed. And he said, okay, then if you don't have any more budget, then we'll talk, you know, then we'll do it for that kind of money. But then what the brand did is, as other creators who were smaller said, yeah, sure, but this is my fee. And that they would say like, no, but James Welsh is going to do it for this much. So you're smaller than him, so you should too. So they used the fee that he had charged against other creators to get them to, you know, to again minimize their budget. And then I'm like, oh wow, that's very, very sneaky. So brands are also just trying to sometimes trick you almost. And this really boils down to, you know, what is right for the brand, what is right for the creator. And I think it's also down to the fact that there's just so many people making videos and content online that brands are also in a very sort of good position, and they can just pick and choose. And if you don't want to work with us for these reasons, then we'll find somebody else who does, because we don't care. This person has as many followers as you do. So I think that they kind of use the promise of free stuff to get leverage on people and to sort of almost abuse the system to just get their products out there for as little money as possible. But hey, any brand who takes themselves seriously will have a budget for their marketing, and if they don't have that, then they need to look at their business model. So now I want to drive the point home. What does this mean for viewers and content creators? So as a creator, I think we all need to be very aware of what our own policies are when it comes to PR and sponsorships. How do you want to deal with it? If you get to a point where you're offered PR, know what position you'll take. Try to think of this yourself, and really think of it, how is it going to help me? You're not here to help brands. They need to help you as well. It's a two-way street, not a one-way street. So that's why I try to limit what I bring in through PR and only focus on the brands that I want to work with, and that I feel are a good fit for the content I would like to make. If I can't see myself fitting in things seamlessly into my content, then I'm not going to do it. And I also wait for brands to approach me for that reason, because I feel it gives me more of a bit more leeway, because I can say, hey, you wanted to work with me, so I can have some more demands rather than I go to a brand and say like, hey, would you want to work with me? So it gives me a slightly stronger position, I feel. And yeah, then I can say like, this is what it costs if you want to use my time, you know, I'm going to be doing marketing for you now, so I do want to get a slice of the pie, you could say. It doesn't happen that often that I have to sort of put my foot down like that, but I'm too small for like having any sort of traction like that. And then from a viewer standpoint, what I think we all need to be aware of if you're viewing content creators is that there are, you know, you just need to look for how channels deal with PR. Are they honest about receiving PR? Are they disclosing it? Are they, you know, if it's not adequately disclosed, for me, that's a hard pass. And I also think that if you're trying to make up your mind whether you should or shouldn't buy a product, that you're better off waiting a few weeks or possibly months, also like lining it up with sales and stuff, and not buy things off of initial reviews, because good reviews just take time. And reviews that are only based off of swatches and one makeup look are not going to give you the information you need to decide, are you going to spend $65 on an eyeshadow palette? You can't make that sort of decision based on those kind of things. And if everybody has the same sort of like speed behind it, then all of the reviews are going to come from the same sort of perspective, I would say. What I am personally very aware of is if brands mention things in like makeup videos saying, oh, I don't need this, or like an anti-haul kind of thing, and then they receive it in PR and then they love it. If that happens, that's usually when I know I can't trust someone, because I feel like, hey, weren't you not interested in this? Then why did you accept it in PR? I mean, you can say no to PR. You can just send it back. Or say like, I don't want to talk about this or whatever. So I sometimes feel that's also a bit fishy. So there's definitely a couple of things going on when it comes to PR. So yeah, what do I mean with the double-edged sword of PR? I think I've made my point clear. I think we need to be aware, are we here as creators to sell products for brands? Or are we here for our audiences to give the best information possible based on our experiences of those products? Because I feel that that's the power of social media. I mean, anyone who's as old as me who remembers the time before social media where the only makeup advice you could get was at a makeup counter, which was always a sales associate who was trying to push products down your throat. That was why social media became so helpful, was because it was normal people telling you how much they like their products or not, and not because they were brand representatives. And I think that like getting PR, whether you as a creator get PR, has to do with the size of your audience first and foremost. But how do you get that audience is because you build a bond of trust with that audience, whereas getting too much PR and everything that comes with it that I've discussed in this video can actually lead you to break that trust. And then I'm like, is that something that I want to do? So as a viewer, the best thing you can do is vote with your clicks and your engagement on videos, and, you know, follow who you like and what you like, but use it wisely. I definitely think that. So yeah, I think we all have a moral obligation to put it that way. So yeah, that's what I wanted to chat about in this tea time chat. I still have a lot of tea left. I did a lot of talking, so now I can drink the rest of my tea because it's definitely cooled down. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Leave me a comment down below what your thoughts are when it comes to PR. These are just mine, and I love how everybody's been able to keep it very respectful in the comments, so I hope we can do that again this time as well. Thumbs up the video if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I do one of these a month, but I have lots of other content coming your way for sure. I chat about makeup all the time, so if you're like, stay tuned for more, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye!